Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live Tuesday edition. We are now officially heading into week 13. Anybody who's here, thank you again for making me part of your fantasy football routine. It means a lot. I'll do my best to get you through and enjoy the rest of the season and hopefully get us some playoff berths in our fantasy football leagues. All right, remember, 5 days a week, 11 a.m. If you missed this, you can always catch the replay. Brandon Kravitz coming on at the bottom of the hour to talk a few waiver wire moves for you. All right, Vikings, Bears. Wow, just wow. 12-10 Bears. Yes, we said bet the under. Yes, we said bet the Bears yesterday, but we were scared rabbits. We said tease it a little bit, tease the points or whatever. So either way, you would have won, but you could have probably made it a little bit easier. Vorador, all right, welcome back. Glad you're here. So, yes, so the Bears do it, though. And comedy of errors in this game, right? It was who turned the ball over less. Justin Fields, a couple of bad fumbles, have to figure out that ball security issue, but he gets it done, ultimately throws for 217, goes over his rushing yards, 59. He goes over on the posted total for those. I want to say the passing yards are a little over 200. Rushing yards are like 56. We went over there. So he did well enough. This Minnesota defense is problematic. Charlene, welcome back. So the Minnesota defense, basically now, this is the first team that saw them twice. And I was talking about that yesterday. The Bears were prepared because Minnesota they send the house, but they send unpredictable blitzes. It's not like they automatically, they'll send a bunch of people, but they'll use stunts. They'll send people from different angles. They make it very difficult. So they either send the house or they back out and drop 8. And so it's either you're throwing into a wall of defenders or you're under extreme pressure. And that volatility from play to play and disguising it till the snap, it's difficult. The Bears' plan was, all right, Khalil Herbert's not a pass protector. Roschon Johnson is. Roschon Johnson had a heavy role in the game because the Bears realized, and my thought was, well, how much pass protection does Justin Fields need against this particular team? Because most teams, he could scramble out and go. So how much does he really need? Against this particular team, with the blitzes they were going to send, it was going to be very important to get some chip help whenever possible. And you saw it didn't always work. It wasn't always the case, but it was better to have that help than not. So Roschon Johnson gets 10 carries to 6 for Khalil Herbert, 5 targets to 2 for Herbert. Herbert's almost 38 yards, 5.8 PPR points, didn't help anybody. Foreman missed this game with an ankle. But the Roschon, I believe this was very game plan specific. So if you started him, great. It worked out well. 75 yards and 5 catches. Morning, Randy. Glad you're here. So, like Charlene said, it's a field goal game. Yeah, big field goal. I mean, Cairo Santos missed one earlier. That one almost came back to haunt them. But it was nice to see the Bears close out a game, to get the ball on the last drive, move down the field, and then play the clock well. But they still didn't play, and they could have played it somehow a little better. They could have found a way to have navigated a little more time off the clock. I know there were timeouts, so they could have gotten a few more seconds. But Minnesota gets the ball with time for one play. Eric, good morning. Glad you're here too. But Gabe, the Bears usually screw this up. Give them credit. They got it done. They got the win. Minnesota tried that crazy schoolyard play. I thought the lateraling on that play was incredible. It was like the best lateraling I had seen. None of them were sloppy. And it was like, as they got hit, they all had the mind to get the ball the next one. The one who screwed it up, the quarterback. He's the one that threw the ball forward. Now they ended up, turning it over, but they probably got 7 laterals. Anyway, back to the Bears. Only one player to talk about here. DJ Moore. DJ Moore, insanely good. 11 catches, 114 yards, only 10 yards a catch. But again, it was the defense they faced, and not knowing if you would have time under the blitzes you were going to see. The drop 8 was going to keep a lot of explosive plays from happening. So the Bears got what they could out of DJ Moore. But after Moore, Cole Kmet had 43 yards on 7 catches. After that, 6 yards for Darnell Mooney. They were the only 3 receiver tight ends to have receiving yardage. The running backs caught passes, of course. But DJ Moore, 13 targets. Now, the only game in the last 5 or 6, it's 5 or 6, with Justin Fields, DJ Moore, other than that Minnesota game, every other game, 96 or more receiving yards. That's incredible. He is, a clear wide receiver one in PPR formats. And this is a tough matchup because of the styles make fights. So we look at this. I'm telling you, Fields is probably a top 10 wide receiver PPR going for the touchdowns are coming. We've seen them already. There are better games on the schedule for those. This wasn't one. But to put up 22 fantasy points, yeah, that's the real deal. All right, let's see. Randy missed a 6-leg parlay by 1 leg, so you need a second field goal and advance Joseph. Yeah, that's a rough one. And I heard there was somebody big media was recommending that 2 field goals for Joseph. Yeah, I know it should have hit. I ended up on Caesars. Bet Caesars, they had this Cyber Monday deal. It was 50%. You have to have a 400 more longer odds on your parlay. They give you a 50% boost. I'm like, all right, I'm going to find 3 legs that work. I took Fields over 56.5 yards. Fortunately, with the kneel downs, he still got over. I took Dobbs under 38 rushing yards. He didn't even have 20. And I took DJ Moore over 66 yards or something like that, and he beat that by almost 50. So then that's with a 50% profit boost, that ended up being, 9x. I think it was 9x my money on that. Now, I don't win a lot of these parlays. I win some, a little hot lately, but anyway, that was cool. Anyway, get back to the thing here. Charlene, yep. I posted on X last night. I put a picture of Josh Dobbs against the Bears, and then it was a gif of I'm turning into a pumpkin. That looked like the pumpkin game because the Bears didn't face him last time. They faced Cousins. Uncle Ted, good morning. Glad you're here. So, but yeah, he turned into a pumpkin in this game. He looked confused. The Bears defense in the last few weeks, they are playing more aggressively. It was almost like when they picked up Montez Sweat, it's almost like it gave them a boost. Albert, good morning. It gave them like this boost. It raised the energy of the entire defense. They are playing, they're flying around. They're really getting after it. Now they'll give up big running plays because they still have a little bit of a talent deficiency, but the aggression is really showing here. And Minnesota's been able to score points, and that was kind of crazy. But yeah, Randy points out, yeah, there were some misplays. But you see, the thing with Dobbs is this: ball placement isn't always great. Sometimes the pass is behind, a little behind, so you get your hands on it here. The better quarterbacks, what they're doing is they're leading you into yards after the catch. So they're hitting you. If you're running this way, they're hitting you this way, not this way. And so it's all those little nuances. That's why Joshua Dobbs is considered a backup level quarterback in the game. And he also is like a one side of the field player. If you notice, most of the time it's to the right. Heavy emphasis on the tight end, safer throws. So there's a lot of deficiencies in his game, and he is one who is going to be exposed the longer he plays. He'll be a great quarterback backup for a long time and a spot starter, very good spot starter. But I don't see a scenario where he becomes the guy in an offense. John, you needed 12 points from Mr. Fields. He got you 6. Oh, man. Oh, that's rough. How did he only get you 6, though? He had 200 passing yards and he had 59 rushing yards. That sounds like a rough scoring system because in most that should have gotten you 25 or 26. So, man, that stinks. Eric, Curtis Samuels on your waiver wire, worth rostering. Yeah, this week especially. This week they're playing Miami. Should be a lot of underneath stuff. So there's definitely that. All right, let me get into a little bit more of the Viking side here. I just talked about Josh Dobbs, so brought up that great question. Went through that. Madison, a couple big runs, 10 for 52 on the ground. Certainly not, is the ceiling we wanted, but he gets enough done. And Ty Chandler, who had been a factor especially last week. 2 weeks ago, it was the concussion to Madison that got him the extra work. 4 carries, 8 yards, 1 catch, 3 yards. So Chandler, who was a factor in the second running back, had been getting a lot of volume. Now, Madison didn't get much himself, so there's that. But there weren't a ton of plays in this game either because Dobbs only attempted 31 passes, and then you get 14 runs from the running backs. So this was a very low-volume play game. And the interceptions, right? The interceptions that, stunted drives, gave the Bears more time of possession. TJ Hawkinson comes through, gets that later touchdown, 5 for 50, and he scores, so you'll definitely take that. They just need this bye, like somebody had said Charlene mentioned, yeah, the Vikings, they need their bye. They need to get Justin Jefferson back. That said, they get Jefferson back. That changes a lot. Jordan Addison. So I had mentioned that Jalen Johnson, from a coverage standpoint, is playing very well this year. Makes mistakes for sure, but he's way improved from what he was. And you saw him. He showed up on a lot of occasions last night. Jordan Addison, that miscommunication, what would have been a long catch, should have been a touchdown. But Dobbs, the pressure, he ends up throwing it out of bounds, and they get nothing. 6 for 39 for Addison. So PPR, again, you'll take it. But on 10 targets and against the Bears, you were hoping for more. All right. If you're enjoying the show, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. Be back on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll have the Start Sit show on Sunday, every day, 11 a.m. Eastern, off on Wednesday and Thursday. If you want a free trial at RotoWire, no credit card needed, just go to rotowire.com/Jim. Get you set up with some free access there. Go ahead and check us out. Hopefully you'll become part of the team. All right, let's talk some risers and fallers here. Quarterbacks, Jordan Love. Look, he started out the season, really good numbers in his first few games. And then it was like, okay, he's inaccurate. Defenses were making adjustments, and Jordan Love seemed to be a problem. He has a really good coach in Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur definitely creates opportunities for his receivers to get open quickly. And very creative use of Jaden Reed. And then you have Romeo Dobbs, who is very good possession receiver and red zone receiver. We did miss Dontavian Wicks last week. I think he should be back next week. Christian Watson set them. But anyway, Jordan Love, multiple touchdowns in his last 3. The completion percentage, other than a few weeks ago, it's been decent. Interceptions, last 2 weeks, they kind of went away. And there's a big difference, right? If he's not throwing those multiple picks in games, all of a sudden, it looks a little bit different. And now he's avoided those for the last couple games. He's averaging right around 290 yards, and he has 5 touchdowns. Last week, he ran for 39. So, look, for fantasy, you're more steady with Love going forward as a second quarterback. I think it's always going to be dicey to put him in a 1-quarterback league lineup as a streamer. But there's 6 teams on bye this week. And if the bye weeks have hit your team, injuries, there's a lot of bad quarterbacks in the league. So if that's your option, I think right now you're a little more optimistic. Now they're playing Kansas City this week. And with this week with the buys, you may still have to start Love. But this is a be careful matchup because Kansas City, they disguise a lot of pressure. I know Love is a veteran in his first full year of playing. But I think this look that Spagnuolo will throw, the different looks he throws at you, this could be a problematic game for Love. So I would not expect a ceiling game. And, of course, with the Chiefs typically not blowing the doors off offensively, we may not have a shootout. Love is a solid floor play this week. But, again, not really excited about the matchup. I do have a question that Randy, I think is relevant. Randy asked about what happened with Gus Edwards. Harbaugh loves making. Yeah, it's always been horrible. When J.K. Dobbins was healthy at whatever points those were, Harbaugh was always getting somebody. Gus Edwards was getting in Dobbins' way. And then earlier this season, it was clear that Edwards was their best chance, but Justice Hill was playing more snaps. Justice Hill was getting red zone work. And then they figured it out and got Edwards the ball. Well, now it looks like, for 1 week at least, Gus Edwards is not really their lead guy. Do I get it? No. Keaton Mitchell got more work. So that was interesting, right? But I do think that offense, Harbaugh's a smart guy. I think they realize they need speed in that offense. If they're thinking NFL playoffs and long term, they have got to get past some of the better teams in the league. The passing game, look, we could say all these nice things, and from an NFL standpoint, yeah, it's a good passing game. They got Rashad Bateman. Zay Flowers is fine, but I don't think anybody with a top-level corner, if they decide to say we're taking him out, I think that's not a problem. And then after that, what have you got? Odell Beckham, who seems to be limping every other play. You hope he gets going, and he certainly might. But if you're banking on the 31-year-old OBJ, might be a problem. No Mark Andrews. So otherwise, if they don't get an infusion of speed, and obviously Mitchell didn't look great last week, because if you don't get that big play, then what is he? He's a small running back, right? He's got to make the big plays. And I do worry that if he's a real lead in that situation, if he's a real lead, I always say defenses play to the speed of the starter. Mitchell was much better suited to be the counterpunch to Gus Edwards, like Tony Pollard was to Zeke Elliott last year. That's a real thing. And so this is going to be problematic with Harbaugh, but he does need the injection of speed in the lineup. They have a bye this week. And I don't know what to expect coming out. And they're going to, but organization, I don't know how they handle it. But yeah, if you're a Gus Edwards investor, I'm nervous right now because he was living on low volume as it was in red zone opportunities. And Charlene likes Curtis Samuel. He gets injured. He does get injured, but when he's healthy, he's going to have down games, but you use him when he's healthy. And when he's not, you either put him to the waiver wire or, go with that. And then Chad, let's see what you got here. How crazy and ask is Flowers, Keaton, Andrews, and Bryce for Hurts in a dynasty. I don't even know how to. That's going to take me a while to think. I know when Chad, ask me that like on DM me or something on that one. That was going to take me a while to process and answer. Just a lot of moving parts in that one. All right, let me get to some player trends here before we have bottom of the hour. Brandon Kravitz coming in. Dak Prescott. Oh my goodness, he just continues the assault on the league. Right, another 331 yards and 4 touchdowns. He just continues. Even his bad game. And a bad game wasn't because he passed bad. It's because they didn't have to do anything offensively. So when they blew out Carolina, and there are going to be those games. Yeah, he throws for 189, but he still throws for 2 touchdowns. So overall, even the bad games are good floor games. And in the bad game, in the good game, he didn't throw an interception. So Dak's floor is great. And anytime they need him to throw, he is just showing us a brilliant reader of defenses, just in a good way, a beautiful robot in the pocket who just knows how to go through the progressions, has the arm, the accuracy, it's what you want in a quarterback. And now that this is a pass-based offense, run secondary, and it probably stays that way. It's hard to trust Mike McCarthy, but I think he realized that running game can't sustain, and he's all about sustaining running game. It's not a sustaining running game. So there's that, right? Next, let's just go to running back risers. Ramondre Stevenson. Now, I recommended him in start-sit lineups this week. So there's that worked out as a positive. He had I felt with Dexter Lawrence out for the Giants, even if they stack, they didn't really have the personnel to stop him. And 21 for 98 and a touchdown and 5 catches, not only 9 yards, but PPR, it's 5 catches. And here's what we need to know about Stevenson. The line blocking, I think it's starting to come around a little bit. It's not going to be great. It was tragically bad earlier in the season, but like we see with a lot of these Bill Belichick teams, and I know the team sinks. That's not the question. But the offensive line is beginning to play better together. And that's just small incremental progress that helps Ramondre Stevenson, who's an excellent running back. So now Stevenson has 3 straight games with 100 scrimmage yards. So he is back in the circle of trust. And again, even though he's not getting a lot of receiving yardage, those catches pile up and there will be red zone opportunities. So I don't know that we're going to see big yardage games, but 100 scrimmage yards is fine. And so right now, I think you're saying about running back 15 now. That's about where he's going. And this is a year where we have a lot of struggles at running back. So I think we definitely are looking at that. Let's see what else we got here. Bijan Robinson. He's trending up because realistically, the touch volume is better than it was. Earlier in the season, it was 15-ish, 17-ish. And now 19 plus touches in his last 2. Rushing yards starting to pop because he's getting the volume, a few more carries, gives you extra opportunity to punch in, maybe a little extended run. 3 touchdowns in his last 2. Beautiful, isolating him on a linebacker on a route, and easy win for him for a touchdown reception. So it is looking like he may not be what people drafted him, those that really reached up in the first round, but again, the state of the running back position, like what's Austin Eckler doing for us right now, right? What's Travis Etienne doing it for us lately? So really, outside of McCaffrey, and is there even another one that we could say every week we count on? But Bijan Robinson is right now fine for what you drafted. If you navigated the early season bumps, looking just fine. And then Josh Jacobs. bye week this week, but the identity of that offense right now, run, run, run. If they trail, they got to throw more. But Jacobs, again, 24 plus touches in 3 of his last 4 games. The yardage is coming. There'll be the occasional game where they fall out of game script and they have to throw more than they want. Those will happen. But Josh Jacobs is also, because of his volume, you look at him as a running back 1. And take a couple quick ones here. Let's see. Admiral Nita, Dylan, I expect that Aaron Jones' injury isn't long term. Dylan, he's honestly 3 yards in a cloud of dust right now. That's kind of what he is. And so he gets a volume, clearly isn't good, but once in a while there's a hole and he gets some extra yardage. He'll score an occasional touchdown, but he's not good at the goal line. He gets stuffed. There were so many times this year, and he didn't play much, Jones, but you'd see there were like 2 or 3 times I remember they gave Dylan 2 red zone end zone carries, miss, bring Aaron Jones, and he walks in the next play. And I just never understood why Aaron Jones wasn't the goal line back. It's like, just because AJ Dillon weighs 290 or whatever, I'm kidding about that. Oh yeah, he's our goal line guy. Well, no, he's not a good goal line runner. But anyway, Dillon is a running back 3, sure. Even if Jones is out, the volume helps him. All right, Eric, considering dropping Ferguson for Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson is, because they're down a lot of receivers, like you said. So they might need him more. It's unlikely Olave plays, though we've seen a couple players now get cleared within a week for concussion. It had been rare, and Rashid Shaheed's not playing. So just remember, Ferguson is a primary read in the red zone. He had a second long possible catch in that last game. And I can't remember what happened on the play. And that would have been, something, but I still think Ferguson is more of a focal point regardless of game script. And so it's a daring game to play with Juwan Johnson, but I understand it. I wouldn't drop Ferguson because I think he's a player. All tight ends have bad weeks. Every one of them. Even Kelsey's had bad weeks this year. So I just think you go through those. But Ferguson being attached to a great offense, I think you roll with that. And then Randy, Kyron Williams, yeah, he may be the league winner. At least 24.6 PPR points in all but 2 games this year that he's played. I think he's played 7 games maybe. But yes, it's the real deal. He's a perfect fit for their system. They use him as a runner, a receiver, and a goal line runner, and receiver too. And so, yes, there it is. And then Randy A.T. Perry. We never know with these rookies. I had him graded really high. I was stunned he went in the 6th round. Of course, that was because he didn't fit my grade. I had him as a player should have been a 3rd round pick. But here's the thing. Rookies take time to develop. Clearly, he's not that elite talent that walks in day one and dominates from day one. Yeah, he scored a touchdown in the first game, but nobody knew him. And there was no plan for him on the defensive side. So I do assume this week he gets targets, but it's going to be a real crapshoot as to what happens. We're excited, but again, he's a 6th round rookie. And how many reps with the starting offense did he get in camp? Probably not a lot, right? So I think there's an acclimation period, and then we got to trust Derek Carr. That's another story. But if you're in a deeper league, multiple flexes, and you got to take a shot on Perry, then you might have to. There are leagues I have to because they're super deep. All right, a couple more players here. James Cook is trending up. Last 3 games, 100 or more scrimmage yards. Now, 2 of those games are just a change in offensive coordinator. So Joe Brady now. I don't know if that's the only thing I saw different. Cook was used in jet motion a few times. And I think that's a nice wrinkle with his skill set where you get him out into a route. You could decide to toss him the ball too. So I think that they're opening the possibilities to utilizing his speed effectively. But with 100 yards in 3 straight games, that's a nice little run. They have a bye this week, but I do think he's going to be a featured part of that offense. Again, not featured. He's not going to get 25 carries, but he does have 22 and 20 touches in the last 2 weeks. I think we could see 18 plus rushes, receptions, between going forward. I think we definitely can, because I think Brady, if one thing, is going to make sure they're a little more balanced out, which might work for them. All right, let's see what else we got here. And then Charlene loves her some Chuba Hubbard. Yes. He gets a lot of volume. Occasionally can break a play. But yes, that offensive line hasn't done him any favors. Definitely want to give him that. All right, wide receiver risers. Jaden Reed. He's had touchdowns in the last 3 games. They use him as a runner and a receiver. And so that has allowed him to get at least 50 yards in his last 3 games. And it's not a great high number, but it's good. He had 73% snap share last week as well, 69% the week prior. So he is seeing a significant amount of action, whereas Green Bay used to be a heavy 2 tight end offense. Think about this. Their top 2 tight ends are hurt. Their number 1 Musgrave is on the injured reserve. So now they might be more willing to use the 3 receiver sets as a base. This is not what their fundamental shift is, but that may be the way to go for now. So Jaden Reed, I think right now, if you're looking top 45 wide receiver, I think you put him in there because if he scores that touchdown, he's getting you serious numbers. And again, they're creatively using him. So he's a wheels up player for sure. Let's see here. Who else I want to talk about? Brandon Cooks. He won't get it done every game. It's the nature of things of that offense. But Brandon Kravitz, good morning. We're getting into week 13.
Yes, that's right. We are down to the nitty-gritty now. No more BSing around.
I'm quickly winding up these 2 players. So Brandon Cooks, I'm saying he's not going to get it done every game, but he is the second wide receiver option in the offense. I think Jake Ferguson still is a primary middle of the field look, but Brandon Cooks is going to have enough good games for you the rest of the way that if you're using him as a wide receiver 3 in 12-team leagues, I think you take the down games knowing you could get the 72 and a touchdown like on Thanksgiving, the 173 and a touchdown like a few weeks ago. Not that those are going to be prominent, but we're going to see these 80-yard, 90-yard games touchdowns a couple or a few times the rest of the way. Any thoughts on Brandon Cooks?
Yeah, I mean, he's a fixture in the offense. He's a guy that sees the field as much as anybody else that's out there. And I think at this point in the season, there are so many teams whose motivations are squirrely at best, and then there are offenses that are absolutely humming, Dallas being one of them. I want as many pieces of these teams that are hot and that are gunning for it right now. I think that that's important all season long. It's not like a revelation, but I think it becomes even more important as we get closer and closer to the fantasy playoffs.
One more player I want to quickly touch on. So after last week's game, not this one just now, so like week 11, I had mentioned the difference for Calvin Ridley in this game. We went for 103 and 2 touchdowns. What happened in that game was I had mentioned that he was running on the perimeter, always. Just ISO'd on the perimeter, no real clever usage of him at all. Teams would bracket him. It was very predictable his routes that he was running. And then 2 games ago, all of a sudden they got him in bunch formations. They got him on the move occasionally. And oh my gosh, look, this guy's open. We could get him the ball. And then last week, I'm getting all these messages on X at halftime. Oh, you told me to start Ridley. He's got a goose egg. I'm like, calm down. There's 4 quarters in a game. and then sure enough, you saw the same type of usage from week 11. Again, on the move in bunches. And then he goes for 89 and a touchdown in the second half. Because of that understanding, we've seen it 2 games in a row with the bunch formations, the motion, the non-static routes. I think Calvin Ridley's here to stay. Do you see it differently?
No, I agree. I think Calvin Ridley has looked really sharp. I think there was a level of patience that we had to exercise. It's really hard. We're trying to win games week to week in fantasy. Maybe you're playing the prop game. It's hard to exercise patience in the fantasy world. This is a guy who hasn't played a lot of football over the last couple of years, integrating into a new offense. And I think somebody else had to emerge in order to open things up, because Calvin Ridley, even though he did come back a little bit rusty like anybody would, he's still going to garner most of the attention because of the talent he has. The fact that Christian Kirk went off and has become somebody that is so consistent and so relied upon in that Jags offense, I think defenses have started to shift some of their attention. And then now it's quieting down Christian Kirk's production, opening things back up for Calvin Ridley, who on top of it looks more fresh and spry. So this could be one of those guys. We see players that get off to those slow starts that hit that sort of that jolt of momentum heading into the fantasy playoffs. The Jags are playing really well right now, and Calvin Ridley is a big part of that.
Love that analysis. Excellent. Brandon Kravitz, every Tuesday he's here. You're here to get some waiver wire ideas. Let's start out with quarterbacks, Brandon.
All right, I got one to keep an eye on. Derek Carr of the New Orleans Saints, few good quarterbacks on bye this week. Well, I mean, Josh Dobbs would have been part of that mix, but last night I think deterred a lot of our confidence. But Josh Allen's on bye, Lamar Jackson, so you're going to have to find a replacement for those guys. You could do worse than Derek Carr, tied for second in the NFL with in terms of 300-yard passing. Lions defense that has not been good, especially since they've been dealing with injuries in that secondary. They've allowed the 7th most fantasy points to the quarterback position. This game could be a shootout. Now, Jim, I think it's important to note here, I like this a whole lot more if Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed play. If they don't play, then we might need to find another option. But if those guys are out there, then I think Derek Carr is a great streamable candidate at quarterback.
Yeah, it was good you added those injuries because, man, it's just the injury bug is crazy. Every year it's crazy, but, man, when it hits, it's just so noticeable. Now, and by the way, with you mentioned Josh Dobbs. So during the game last night, I told the people on the show earlier, I put the GIF up of him turning into a pumpkin. Yeah, I thought that was about it. So it was kind of funny. But anyway, give us some running backs, Brandon.
Yeah, I think NASA is starting to distance themselves in terms of that relationship. All right, let's talk about a couple of running backs. Samaje Perine, we could go ahead and scoop him up. Dearness Johnson's a guy I'm going to bring up in a moment as well. Perine still involved in the offense. They can't push the ball down the field, so they've got to rely on their running backs. So everybody's getting involved. The last 2 weeks, 13 total points in PPR each of the last 2. He's either scoring touchdowns or he's catching passes. I don't need to tell you, both are great for fantasy. So Perine could be somebody that could get you a spot start as an RB2. Dearness Johnson, we touched on him briefly last week. He's now the backup to Travis Etienne in Jacksonville. I think we need to spend a little more time on him. Etienne is really struggling right now, and Johnson is getting way more involved as the weeks roll on. He's completely supplanted Tank Bigsby. It's not even close in terms of the number 2 on that offense. We got further confirmation when Etienne left the game briefly. It was Johnson that stepped up. He had that big play, 40-plus yards. So this is a guy that I think handcuff appeal definitely, and perhaps, I see it there on the screen, start stashing Dearness Johnson. Yeah, I mean, if you have Etienne, you have to have him at this point. He's kind of become a must-add player. But even if you want to play a little bit of defense, not someone I'm fully comfortable starting just yet, but I'm liking what I see from him. He's got a little bit of juice.
And those who are box score hunting and going back multiple games, they may notice that Tank Bigsby had 9 carries 2 weeks ago. That was in a blowout game, and basically they pulled anybody who was viable. So that was not relevant. Dearness Johnson was the number 2 back 2 games ago as well. So Brandon is spot on with this one. He clearly is the number 2. He is getting 7 carries in each of the last 2 games. And as this goes in deeper leagues, that could be useful in a flex spot. So there's that. And he's made big plays, like Brandon said, each week as well. Brandon, any wide receivers you like this week?
Yeah, I have a guy that I really like, and then somebody that's going to help you if you need more immediate assistance. We'll start with the immediate one. Curtis Samuel, just chasing some production here. I don't really trust it week to week with Curtis Samuel. I've been down this road in seasons past, but I mean, if you need somebody who's producing, he's doing it. He set season highs in receptions and yards on Thursday. And it's not like this is a rarity. This is now 5 times already this season where he has received at least 6 targets in a game. So the volume is there. That's if you need help at wide receiver. The guy that I really like, though, that's not going to help you this week because he's on bye, is Jalen Hyatt of the New York Giants. He is the first Giants receiver to go for over 100 yards, I think, since the Reagan administration. It's been a minute. So we ought to take this seriously. Always looking, like we just mentioned, late season momentum as we inch closer to the playoffs. I want guys that go off at the end of the year. Perhaps Jalen Hyatt could be that guy. So he'd be my number 1 target if I don't need a wide receiver to throw into my starting lineup.
Before we get to tight ends, and Randy just posted that if you have Zach Moss, don't drop him. A new report says Jonathan Taylor has a major thumb injury. I've yet to see that. I believe what Randy's sharing with us, but that's a report that you'll definitely want to check out and find. I'm sure that's a story. That'll be big news as the day goes on. So just be cognizant that you're setting your waivers. If you have Moss, you're considering dropping him, which you may or may not. But yeah, right now, if that's the news, yeah, he's a definite hold.
Yeah, Ian Rappaport from NFL Network, that was 4 minutes ago. He just dropped this. So this is very fresh information saying that his status is in doubt going forward. So
wow.
We don't know any more info than that, but that's what Rappaport is reporting right now. So yeah, great spot there. Definitely want to hold on Zach Moss, and if he's on the waiver wire, he would zoom to the top of the list.
Oh my God. And right. Because literally the way he performed in that offense in this year's state of running backs, he's playing like a running back one. If he has all the work, he's a legit running back one.
Now, how about this? Jim, last week pulled off a big trade in my top league. Jonathan, I was loaded at running back, needed a little bit of help at wide receiver, but relying way too much on Adam Thielen. Had to get out of that business. So I traded Jonathan Taylor for Devontae Smith.
Wow!
I got out of Dodge just in time, I guess. If
I
don't mean to grin ear to ear when someone gets hurt, but when you're able to avoid it, it's a good feeling.
Timing is everything in fantasy football, right? Better. Sometimes we're on the good side of it, and sometimes we're not. You were on the good side of that one for right now. Hey, how about tight ends? Give us 3.
Okay, let's go with the obvious. Pat Freiermuth, got to get him out there. Just doing my due diligence here, Jim. 11 targets, 9 catches, 120 yards. Might not be available in most of your leagues, but based on sites I looked at, Yahoo, CBS, he's available in about 51% of leagues, so could be out there. I know that he's out there in one of the leagues I play in. Gerald Everett back for the Chargers, caught a touchdown pass on Sunday night, snagged all 4 of his targets, and the Patriots are up next. Their defense is still okay, but this is a team that's given up. So if you need a talented tight end, I think he would be number 2 on my list. And then if you're really desperate, Tucker Kraft, and just 1 catch on 1 target, but it was for a touchdown, and he ran a route on 88% of Jordan Love's dropbacks. So he's out there. I'm thinking he's going to get more involved as the weeks roll along, and you got to like the way that Jordan Love has been playing as of late. So who would have thought we would have said this, but now I want pieces of the Packers offense.
Wow, right, how things change, right? Things change fast in the NFL. How about defensive and special teams?
I got 2 here, low-hanging fruit for the Bucs and the Falcons. 2 great matchups for these teams. The Falcons get Tim Boyle and the Jets, the same Jets team that somehow, some way allowed a Hail Mary pick 6. I'd never seen this in my entire life. And then the Bucs get Bryce Young, who's been so bad this year, he just got his coach fired. I would rank it Falcons, Bucs, and then if you need a third, the Chargers are playing the Patriots. We see what that offense looks like. So I would go Falcons, Bucs, Chargers as it stands right now.
Couple comments before we get you out of here. Eric is asking if Chuba Hubbard is a Week 13 flex. They are playing at Tampa Bay. Should he play Hubbard as a flex or stay away from him?
I like Hubbard as a flex. It's a clear split between Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard, and now you have a new coach coming in, so it becomes very much and it's a free-for-all. So we don't really know in terms of what the usage is going to be, but I think Hubbard has looked like the better running back. Usually when you have the interims coming in, they're quick to bench high-paid guys, veterans that aren't necessarily making hay. So Chuba Hubbard's somebody I would love to see what the other options are, but just in a vacuum, I think Chuba Hubbard's a fine flex.
I also wonder if Jonathan Mingo, who's playing a ton of snaps, targets have been okay. I wonder with the new coach in now I wonder if there's going to be a push to get him more involved. But the problem with that owner is David Tepper, that he fired a dude in 11 or 12 weeks. It's like he wants results now. And if you want results now, you should probably draft a CJ Stroud, right? But that's neither here nor there. But that said, so that's going to be an interesting thing with that. How the offense goes. Are they going to be afraid of losing, even though they're going to lose, or are they just going to try to build something? So that's going to be yet to be determined. So I want to add, just for that reason, Mingo could be a speculative bet if he's still on waivers in your league. Another question here. Let me see here. Charlene, defensive specialty, Miami and kickers. Well, Miami's probably rostered everywhere. They're probably a top 3 defense right now, so you should be fine there. Matt Gay of the Colts. No Jonathan Taylor, man. Wonder what their offense is going to look like. They're fine with Zach Moss, right? All right,
honestly, I'm not sure. Jonathan Taylor is great. He's definitely better than Zach Moss, but does it really change their offensive outlook that much? We've already seen what this looks like.
And their offense looked better with Moss this year. It's terrible to say, but they were much better.
They became too Jonathan Taylor reliant once they started to work him in more and more, where I think they were playing more free offensively. When you have, and that's the case in every sport, when you have a talent like Jonathan Taylor, you feel like you have to get him the ball, and it changes the way that you do things structurally.
All right, let's see. Rise above anything asks, Would you trade Kyler Murray for Austin Eckler? It could be as Stroud is on the roster.
Oh, no doubt.
Yes.
No doubter. Because I want to be starting CJ Stroud, and I don't even want that headache. You can upgrade at running back or flex like that. That's a no-brainer. Definitely do it.
And then Charlene tells us to have a good day. Thanks, Charlene. Always appreciate you. Brandon, tell everybody where we can find you and your work.
At Brandon Kravitz, you can find me across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Happy to answer any questions, have any dialogue in the fantasy world. I shared today, I finally dropped Kyle Pitts. It had to happen. I've been hanging on to this guy for years now. Keeper league situation and everything, just can't do it anymore. But that's the kind of stuff that happy to chat with you about. Also, 5 days a week on the Fantasy Bites podcast, all part of the RotoWire podcast network. That's 5-minute episodes every single day. What you need to know in the NFL and the NBA.
All right, everyone. We'll be back Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. For Brandon Kravitz, I'm Jim Coventry. Everybody have a great day.